Hi there, welcome to Tarotland Soap Opera. Today I'm going to do a reading for Virgo energy. And like usual, we're going to do two rows. The top row I'll refer to as high vibe Virgo energy. The bottom row, a more worldly, shadowy Virgo energy. Because we all have free will and we have to make decisions in our life. And the top row can kind of represent either how we are moving forward in life or how we'd like to move forward in life, maybe a little differently. Maybe the bottom row can kind of represent some things that manipulate us. It can represent staying in our comfort zone. And maybe we'd like to move forward a little differently and work through some of those things. And some people are, but we all have our shadow nature that we kind of got to deal with. Which is shadow nature also can be our fears and our insecurities and our self-limiting beliefs. We can know different people in our life. Some people are more aligned with our hopeful, believing nature. We can know people who kind of align with our more shadowy nature. And again, our shadowy nature can be our pride, our ego, our codependent nature, our lazy nature, self-indulgent nature. And, then we can have different people who we could be in relationship with or that we'd like to be in relationship with. And it's kind of like, which people are we going to hang out with more? The people who are maybe more in high vibe, loving, encouraging, just, fair, stable, grounded, act with character and integrity, treat other people the way they like to be treated? Or do we kind of hang out with people that, don't require us to discipline our more worldly, shadowy nature? Or do we think we don't deserve to be in more just and fair and balanced relationships? And all those things. We're kind of going to talk about it. And Virgo energy can talk about what our long-term plans are, kind of more what drives and motivates us. Is it more the things of the world? Have we done some work within ourselves to feel more stable and grounded within ourselves, to appreciate what we bring to the table, to know our worth and value, to love ourselves? And, some people have and some people haven't. It's a process of becoming. And we could know if we were to go live our life differently, and as some people are living their life differently, that there's going to be some other people in their life that kind of, that's not their truth, and they don't want to live their life like that. Or it would require them to maybe get out of something that manipulates them or away from other people and things that manipulate them. And, everybody's got free will and everybody has to make those decisions within themselves. And some people will and some people won't. Okay. So let's look at the top row first. The reason for the top row's reading is the Four of Cups, and it's the reason why the reading came out. And the Four of Cups is Cancer energy. And the Four of Cups can talk about the fact that there's people that we either could miss being in our life, maybe they're not in our life anymore, or we're kind of sad that some other people, maybe we feel like they do use their emotions manipulatively, but they don't really work together with us cooperatively from love and truth. And we might want to move forward in life, kind of take that cup of love, to get away from these things that manipulate us, to love ourselves, and put in some work and effort to free ourselves from things that manipulate us. And maybe some other people aren't ready to do that. And the reason for the bottom row's reading is the Six of Wands, which can be that some people might still be caught up being more about themselves, more about the world. This is a feminine figure, so that can talk about emotionally. The way I read tarot is the feminine figures talk about how we think and feel. The masculine figures can represent the action that we're taking and how we're presenting ourselves in the world. Some people are shadowy. They are manipulative and prideful and kind of more about themselves. Still want to make life just more about themselves instead of working together with people cooperatively from love, but we'll get more to that later. So in the top row, we have the Magician, which is Gemini and Virgo. Gemini is about our dualistic nature, that we have the free will to align with our more worldly, shadowy nature or our more hopeful and believing nature. And some high vibe people could have lived their life, making their life more about these things of the world, or ego, or image, or indulgence, or fear, insecurity, or codependency, shadowy energy. And with the Six of Wands representing Leo energy, it can just represent our more egoic nature. And there's a lot of things in our more worldly egoic nature that can manipulate us, right? But some high vibe people kind of could have felt they were missing an opportunity in love. Making my life about myself, making my life about these things I indulge in, being in relationships with people who feel that way or have certain ways of living life. And, shadowy energy can be that you're just more caught up in the superficial and shallow, more self-indulgent instead of really being in a more deep, meaningful, authentic relationship. That would be like high vibe Leo. And some of the people who work through their shadow nature, they ended up having to get to a place where they were harnessing high vibe Leo energy, which is getting out of my ego, working through my fears, my insecurities, my codependency, my self-limiting belief, my immature nature, to align with my more hopeful, believing nature. And I'm going to take that cup of love, and then in my Gemini nature of free will and my Virgo nature, I'm going to do that work that I got to do within myself, because I don't want to repeat that old pattern of a way of living life or viewing life or types of people I used to get in relationships with or things I used to tolerate in my life. And then we have the Four of Wands, which is fire sign energy of being inspired to kind of be firing on all four cylinders is how I view it. And in high vibe energy, in the Four of Wands, it can be realizing that in tarot, we talk about the four suits, the heart, the mind, the 3D world, and the creative, passionate nature, that they're all equally important, but we had some lessons to learn, and we could have thought other things were more important than others. We kind of made other aspects of our life more important than, like, maybe you're a very loving person, but maybe you kind of got in situations where it wasn't very grounded or stable, or it was very grounded and stable, but it lacked creativity and imagination. Kind of like having a job that you don't really like. It doesn't really spark your interest in a way. Anyway, the Four of Wands can be, I realize my heart, my emotional nature, my truth, my worldly nature, and my creative, passionate nature. They all equally are important, and to think that I can disregard one or two or three of them and think I'll be happy is kind of in the bottom row, kind of living an illusion. The truth sets us free. So you want to manifest from a place of love, taking that cup of love to believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, being inspired. And then we have the Sun card, like the Leo card. They're both Leo energy. I have the free will to give myself the things that I wish other people would have given me. Or I can stay in more codependent energy and be like, look at me, who wants to love me, who wants to appreciate what I look like, what I wear, what I drive, my status, my image, Or we can say, you know what, I'm going to give myself those things and appreciate myself. And if I've been looking for people to appreciate me and value me, but there aren't people in my environment who appreciate and value me, then I need to see the truth of it. The Sun can talk about being illuminated to the truth, kind of seeing through the illusion. We have to accept the truth that everybody is where they're at, has their own views in life, their own drives and motivations, and if they have their more immature, prideful, shadowy nature, they do, and we have to deal with the truth of it. And we could love them, and we wish that they would work through their shadow nature to maybe in high vibe Leo be more authentic, be more warm, loving, encouraging, work together with us in the Four of Wands, can talk about coming together with other people in joy and celebration. And in your Gemini, which is air sign energy of the mind and our communication and our flirting and all that stuff, and Virgo energy is bringing things into the 3D world. And over here we have the emotions. There could be people in your life that you spoke your truth to. You were maybe loving and encouraging to them, saying you wanted, you're moving forward in this way, and do they want to have a new beginning with you? Do they want to be your friend or something? And some of those people are going to come with you, and some of those people aren't. And just seeing the truth of and accepting the truth of who is and who isn't. And then in the Nine of Cups, it can talk about becoming independent, kind of emotionally, giving yourself that cup of love to be more independent from people in our life who, in this Sun card, that's an emotional figure, or it's a feminine figure, so it can be someone emotionally who still could be more about themselves and more kind of manipulated by themselves, by their fear. They might want to be in a relationship with you, but they might kind of want to repeat this old pattern where maybe it is still being more motivated and inspired by the world and ego or lust or something. And in the Nine of Cups, you want to become independent of a way of living life or relationship dynamics where people are more inspired to be more emotionally independent and have learned to love themselves, where it isn't still a little bit more of maybe a more codependent relationship. Because in our more shadowy nature, it can be we're kind of going out in the world and saying, I want someone to love me, instead of learning to love ourselves so we in turn can be loving to other people. And it can be more about, well, no, I kind of like to view myself as a loving person, and I want to be in a relationship, but they could still be more manipulated. The Four of Wands is Aries energy, which is about the self. They could be kind of more not wanting to see through the illusion that they're a little bit more about themselves and it's a little bit more about them. So they don't have to be more shadowy and prideful, and that we'll get to in a minute. But they still could be a loving person, but they're kind of still a little bit more about themselves, or kind of still a little bit more about being in a relationship more for the ego or the image or the status, or it just being a little bit more about them. And that's people who haven't become emotionally independent of their more egoic nature of being a little bit more about themselves. And in order to really work together with people from a foundation of love, it's supposed to be where, it's just and fair. And I want love, you want love, but we're not codependent. Like it's, well, no, you're supposed to love me. It's like, no, you're supposed to love you. I'm supposed to love me. And together we're supposed to love each other. And so then in the Two of Wands, you have a dream. And there could be some people that you did kind of realize that, some people we want to be in a relationship with are people who harness this high vibe energy, but, they're in a relationship with someone else. And the Four of Cups can be, kind of feeling like you missed an opportunity. But, we have to have some faith and belief that God at the big picture kind of really knows what you really want to manifest, really knows what other people want to manifest. And can people be just and fair and loving? Yeah, but we're these complex human beings, and I like to do this and you like to do that, and I'm a little bit more driven by this and you're a little bit more driven by that. It's like if you were to look at us as being cookie mixes, you know, The ingredients you would want in your cookies, it's great to be a cookie. What you want, though, in your mix of being a cookie is different than what some other people want in their mix of life, you know? We do have those four elements, and it's hopefully realizing they're all equally important, but it could be 4 scoops of flour, 2 scoops of this, 1 teaspoon of that, and it's a mix that kind of makes us up. We all have all 12 of the zodiac sign traits and characteristics, but we could be a little bit more you can be a loving person, but you still could be a little bit more maybe practical and grounded, and other people could be a little more creative and inspired, and they can both be loving people, but you kind of, if you're someone who wants maybe more to be in relationships with people who are a little more independent, and then we have the Two of Swords, where people maybe listen a little bit more to their intuition instead of being a little bit maybe more influenced by maybe some things of the world, and kind of willing to just become more independent of a certain phase of life. Even, we can know people that are loving and nurturing and supportive and all that, but we're ready to kind of have a new beginning and move forward a little differently, maybe a little less inspired to live our life in a certain way than some other people are still living their life and view life a certain way. And we just could kind of find out that, again, in our fire sign energy, we got a lot of fire sign energy: Aries, Leo. The Two of Wands is Aries. Down here we have Leo. Sometimes we can feel stuck in the Two of Wands and the Two of Swords. And maybe part of some things not working out, if we had some healing and growing and maturing to do, it's to kind of make us realize that the next time things come around for me, because when one door closes, other doors open, that, for us to be more appreciative. And then as you're moving forward in life, there can always be shadowy people in your row, because there's always shadowy people in the world. There can be other people who would like to be in a relationship with you. Like, that'd be great. In the Nine of Cups would be like, wow, that'd be like a dream come true. But your intuition could tell you that, nah, I don't think we're really on the same page, or I think you really are more shadowy. I just think you're trying to create an illusion. You're more independent of things that manipulate you. And if I know you, I kind of already know the things that kind of manipulate you. And I might know that you're not very independent. And I might not know that you don't maybe quite listen to your intuition when, there's challenges in a relationship, that you might act more out of kind of maybe being immature or bossy or controlling, or more about yourself and a little more self-indulgent. And, we meet all these people in the world, and I think as you're moving forward, I think you're loving and believing in yourself, offering people truth and love, but you're maintaining your emotional independence from people, so that, because in the past you could have let the actions other people in their free will chose to take, maybe it used to kind of get you in your ego, and it made you feel, you took it more personally and feeling rejected, and it would maybe kind of get you confused, like, why are they doing that? I'm being truthful and honest. And the whole thing is, eventually you just realize that, all I can do is go out in the world and treat people the way I like to be treated, and then they have the free will choice to react or respond in whatever way they want to. And it just kind of shows me the truth of where they're at If they respond in kind, well, great. Then we'll work together. And as we move forward, I'll keep listening to my intuition. And we probably all have some people in our life that we are doing that with. And then there's other people in our life who made the free will choice, and sometimes some people created, we could have gotten along for a certain phase, and then, people can kind of get spoiled in a relationship. People can get confused. People can get up in their head or their fear. And then, it's kind of like they're dealing with something that could kind of make them have to kind of retreat, because there might be some things they kind of need to work through before they are ready to keep moving forward in relationships the way they had been. And again, it could be maybe offering love to themselves to be more independent of things that manipulate them. And that can even be a friend group, it can be their original family, it could be their own ego and fear, and that can kind of halt some progress moving forward in a relationship. And then, we extend grace to people that, if people don't seem to want to have a new beginning, if people kind of can't, maybe in the Two of Swords, decide what they want to do, can't decide, it's like, well, I'm going to deal with the truth of the situation. I'm going to keep maintaining my emotional independence. I'm going to keep offering myself that cup of love. I'm going to keep working with the people in my life who do work together with me. And I'm going to keep believing in my dreams and listening to my intuition. And in the meantime, everyone else is going to have to choose to either work through some of their issues or not. But I don't want to be in relationships with people who aren't working with me cooperatively from love, who are acting maybe in some shadowy ways or manipulative ways. And sometimes that's what shadowy people can do, is not work with you cooperatively to try to keep you stuck and confused, either while they go indulge themselves in whatever they want to go indulge themselves in. Well, you're going to sit there, right? Perfect. I'm going to go do this. And it's kind of using the love that you have for them to kind of manipulate you. And then we kind of work through it, deal with the truth of it. If people really wanted to work together with me in a more just and fair and authentic and stable and grounded and loving way, they would. And so I kind of see the truth that they're maybe not who I thought they were. And if they were that way, they're apparently kind of not firing on all four cylinders anymore. But I still have my dream. So the Two of Wands and Aries energy also is that I have a dream. And was there people I wanted to have part of that dream working with me? Yes. But if I can't make them, and I have to see the truth, if they were motivated and inspired by it, they would. And if they're being more stubborn or prideful or manipulative, I can't have my dream come into reality with someone who acts like that anyway. So I keep listening to my intuition, and I keep taking that cup of love, trusting the divine has a plan for my life, moving forward with the other people in my life who are more independent, believe in their dreams, listen to their intuition, do offer me that cup of love, and we offer that back and forth to each other. And so it's kind of like we could have people in our life, but they could want us to keep moving forward with them in a way that we don't feel is very loving. So just like they kind of want to repeat this past pattern, but they want to keep moving forward in that way. And you could say, no, because I think you're not kind of seeing things clearly, and you want me to not see things clearly. So I'm going to let you move forward the way you want to move forward. And I'm going to take this time to love and believe in myself, and if I realize it was things that were manipulating me, then I'll move forward. If it's them who needs to work through those things, they would move forward. But in the meantime, the high vibe people, either way, are going to listen to their intuition about who are the people in my life who I think are more independent, are more, Virgos about insightful, self aware, not in denial that when I act this way, or I do this, or I do that, that's isn't conducive to a just and fair and balanced relationship. Who are the people in my life who do that? Who are the people who are more about themselves? Who are the people who want to stay in denial of the truth? Because as you're moving forward in your life, this would be very high vibrational energy. There could be other people who might pop up in your life who there's someone who things didn't work out for them the way they thought. And then they could pop up in your life while you're moving forward in their Aries Libra energy who feel like they missed an opportunity in love with someone or with you. And then they might want to get back in a relationship. And I think in your Virgo and Gemini energy, you would be willing to communicate and work with them. But you want for people to illuminate the truth. And if some people kind of give the impression that it's kind of more still about them, or wanting to confuse you about the truth, or they still haven't seen the truth, and maybe still more about being indulged in a relationship, all they know is they're not happy with some things in their life. So it can be someone who's looking to you again, maybe to kind of be the answer to their problems, but that can be codependent energy. It's like, until you do this work within yourself to be more independent and more authentic, and have worked through being more maybe about you and wanting to stay in denial that you kind of think it should be a little bit more about you, or you kind of have some illusions about what you think is just and fair in a workplace, friendship, or relationship, and I think we have different ideas of what we think is just and fair, and you might try to confuse me about what's just and fair. There's going to be some people in your life that you're not going to, can we wish everyone love and encouragement? Yeah. Am I going to want to get in a more involved relationship with you? No. And at the end here, we're going to ask what's coming up for you that you might not see coming. But you're manifesting with people in your life who you think are more authentic, warm, loving, encouraging, and independent. Believing in your dreams, listening to your intuition, and working through the fact that just working through becoming independent of just some people in your life who, and maintaining maybe kind of your distance from people who you know are kind of more, a little more manipulative or something. So, what's going on in the bottom row? We have the Death card, the Justice card, the High Priestess, the World, the Ace of Swords, and the Five of Wands. So, like the Six of Wands, the Five of Wands is also Leo energy. And it can represent that the truth can be that, with the Ace of Swords here, the truth can be that a lot of people have a lot of inner conflict. And because they have a lot of inner conflict, they could operate more from their defensive, egoic nature, or immature nature, prideful nature, manipulative nature. For other people, the truth is, the Five of Wands can talk about that some people are very competitive in the world. And they might not want to see the truth of it. But if you've been in relationships with people who are more competitive, they could view themselves as a certain type of person, stable, grounded, loving, whatever, right? Just fair. But then if they get in a relationship or meet some people, shadowy energy can be more where people view themselves that way, but it's kind of more of, and in a lot of ways, they could be kind of just and fair and stable and grounded and loving. But a lot of it can be driven more by ego. Like, I do this so people will want to be in a relationship with me. So again, it's kind of not authentically who they really are. That'd be high vibe Leo. I authentically am who I say I am. Other people try to create an illusion and like to view themselves these certain ways, but it is kind of a little more self-serving. Well, what's this going to get me? And I act this way and I don't understand why people don't like me more. And partly it can be because they're not really more authentic. It's like a mask that they wear, or it is a little more superficial and shallow. And some people are very competitive in the world, and they either want it to be more about them, or they want a certain status and image in the world is the most important thing in the world. And we have to be willing to see the truth about that, about some people in our life too, right? With the death card, that is emotional water sign energy of Scorpio, and that can be, we are these emotionally complex human beings. We all have issues from our past that could have made us sad, and people who are hurtful and unkind and unjust and intimidating and controlling. A death to justice. We've all experienced that, right? And for some people, we've all been there where, our higher self is what the high priestess can talk about. Our higher self kind of wanted us in the world card. The world can talk about learning lessons to see the truth of it. That some people got some inner conflict and they're kind of manipulative and prideful or full of themselves. And that's why some people act like that. But, we have a lot of these lessons to learn, and we in our own pride and ego and kind of don't understand when people act like that. And, it hurts, but, eventually high vibe people work through it. And because they realize if they keep staying in that energy, they're going to keep having this inner conflict about why there's certain people in the world that are more manipulative and hurtful and unkind, and think maybe in their more shadowy Scorpio that people can harness, where they're more superficial and shallow, more intimidating and controlling, who think it's just and fair to kind of use their intuition in a shadowy way. And if they, why are some people shadowy? Because they probably have had life experiences with other people who were hurtful and unkind to them, and maybe had other people in their life who tried to manipulate them, and then those people were kind of manipulative and competitive and controlling, and they could have thought, and they were sad, but then they could have decided, instead of becoming independent of those people and believing in myself and listening to my intuition and dealing with the truth and acknowledging the truth to myself, those people kind of wore a false mask. They're not who they say they are. And I'm going to see the truth of it. I'm going to get out of my ego about it and my inner conflict about it, and I'm going to move on. And they can live their life the way they want it, and I'm going to become independent of them. But, sometimes those people who are hurtful and unkind, for one, it can be people in our own friend group or family group, and we want to be part of the group and we want people to like us. And so then, instead of becoming more independent of them, we could kind of indulge them in their more shadowy ways of being just to get along. And sometimes if it was when we were children, you know, if our parents were bossy or controlling or abusive or somehow shadowy, right? We could have a lot of inner conflict. We could have felt like they weren't very, in the death card, which can mean like not, that some people weren't very loving and encouraging or authentic or warm, but by worldly standards with the justice card, overall, we can deal with some of these things. And overall, it seemed like, maybe pretty victorious and successful. The Six of Wands can talk about things looking victorious and successful in a lot of ways it could have been. And then a lot of people kind of were viewed as a just and fair person. And by worldly standards, everything could have looked kind of just and fair. But they could have been hiding the truth that, you know, that wasn't their truth. But because sometimes we don't want to see the truth, we put an end. Again, the World card can talk about an ending. We put an end to seeing the truth, and then some people kind of could have buried that under the surface. And that's why we come in contact with all these different people, is to kind of get us to deal with some of those things that we might, because that's kind of Scorpio energy, emotional water sign energy, where we kind of keep those things buried beneath the surface, but it causes us inner conflict, but we, might not be ready to deal with the truth of it. So we keep it buried beneath the surface, and then we can choose to keep moving forward more in our pride and ego. Like, nope, I don't have to deal with it. Nope, it's over. It's done. I don't want to deal with it. I don't have to deal with it. And then for people who are more competitive and prideful in the world, because they could have a certain status and image in the world, they could think that they can act more competitive or manipulative or whatever in relationships. And because they might have a certain status or image, think that other people, kind of like they can manipulate people about the truth of who they are. And, sometimes people who know people better, because they were in a more involved, behind closed doors type relationship with them, how people can present themselves in the world is that, they are more motivated and inspired by truth and love, but that cannot be the truth of them emotionally. They could present themselves in a very just and fair and stable grounded kind of way in the world, but they could hide they're just more about the world. And the truth is they're very competitive in the world, and they're really more about them and their ego and their image. And when they even get in relationships with people, if other people seem to be more independent of things that kind of manipulate these people, they can kind of get in competitive energy with those people. And they kind of don't like that those people maybe are more comfortable with themselves to be less manipulated by other people in the world and their ego. And some of these people are very much driven by their ego and their image. And then they can kind of act in those more competitive ways. And if they could feel they don't get justice in the world because they do make their life about these things and those things kind of manipulate them, they could think it's not fair that you're not manipulated by those things. And so then they can try to stop you. The Justice card in Libra energy, represented by the scales of justice, they can want to try to stop you from feeling balanced within yourself. And some of them even could be hiding that they ended a relationship with you because during the course of the friendship or the relationship, you changed. The fives can talk about change. You did do some work within yourself to work through some of your issues, and you were kind of illuminated to the truth, and you dealt with some of those issues within yourself and from your past, and you freed yourself from them. You weren't in the same energy you were in when you got ways of thinking and believing and perceiving yourself in the world as you had been when you could have gotten in that relationship. And then because you changed, for them to keep moving forward with you, they also would have to do that inner work and free themselves from things that manipulate them. And they just had the free will choice to decide to do that or not. And some of them decided, no, I don't want to deal with those things. So I'm just going to keep moving forward in my life the way I live it. Those people are going to move forward in life differently. For most people, we can have different people in our life. Oh, you want to go do that? Oh, wow. I'm kind of scared of doing that. And oh, you're more bold and brave and confident. Like, oh, you're going to go get a different job. I'm going to stay here. Oh, you're going to go to college. I'm not going to go to college. Oh, you're going to move to another town. Oh, I would never move to another town. Whatever it is. Most people, it's like, oh, well, that's great. You go do you. And then you can just be sad that you did go have a new beginning and it required you to become independent of something, and you're just working through kind of establishing your new life wherever you're at, away from some people that you could have kind of wanted to stay in relationship with for some of them. But then there's other people who don't like that you are kind of more who you say you are. And then it can get them in their ego and their competitive nature. And then they can do kind of hurtful and unkind things because then they're kind of competing with you. And they could try to stop people from listening to their intuition about the truth that you are a more just and fair and authentic and loving person. But they don't want those people to work together with you. So they try to stop other people and cause other people inner conflict about how they perceive you, like saying you're not who you say you are, that, you have these more shadowy ways of being, in order to try to get other people to keep aligning with them. And that's a competitive energy. And high vibe people can be like, you know what? I'm not into the drama. The people who are going to align with people who are more bossy or controlling or intimidating or need to be the center of attention or are more competitive, enjoy your life. You go do that. I'm going to go live my life. And if I hadn't realized some people were more like that, I have realized it now. And I realize I don't want to hang out with people who act like that. And I just have to go through this process of being disappointed that people act like that in the world. And becoming independent of them. But I'm not going to give up my dreams. But why do some people get shadowy? Because they could have had people who acted like that. And they just decided maybe that there is hurtful and unkind people out there who manipulate loving people. I used to be one of the loving people who got manipulated and hurt. Not anymore. I've kind of gotten the death to justice and listening to my intuition. I am no longer kind of more balanced and work through my inner conflict and my mental conflict about my dualistic nature. I just kind of disconnected from my more emotionally intuitive, loving nature. I can get hurt doing that. And I decided I think that is just and fair. And I hide from the world the truth that I could have a lot of inner conflict now about being more authentically myself or loving, because somewhere along the line I decided if people were going to manipulate loving people, I was going to be one of the people to manipulate loving people. Because I didn't want to be manipulated anymore. And so then it can be more, I'm not going to listen to my intuition. My intuition tries to tell me the truth. You shouldn't do this. You're being rude. You're being unkind. You're being unjust. You're being unfair. You're being bossy. You're being controlling. You're being self-centered and egotistical or whatever. And they're like, nope, don't want to hear it. Do not want to listen to the truth from the competition, which is their more loving, intuitive, hopeful, believing nature. I have decided it's going to be more about me, and I guess some people who make their life being more about them could be because either in their free will, they're narcissistic, very self-centered and egotistical, and some people, they saw different people in the world, what happened, and in different situations that they saw people in life, and they decided, I'm going to live life like these people and follow their example. And those people weren't just and fair. Those people hid behind a false mask and created an illusion about the type of person they were. And if you have a certain status or image in the world, people think you're this certain type of person. And then I can get the world to have new beginnings with me, because the Five of Wands comes after the Four of Wands, which can be coming together with others and moving forward in relationships, looking victorious and successful. But it's all driven out of fear or defensiveness or ego or lust or greed or themselves or competitiveness. It isn't authentically working together with love. It's like, I'll use all the things I was given. You could look at our fire sign energy as the creative, inspired spark of life and things that we have to not make us an animal and not make us a computer. And some people said, I'm going to use all those things manipulatively. I'm going to use my emotions manipulatively. I'm going to use my sexuality manipulatively. I'm going to use my words and my charm and my looks and my money, and I'm going to use them all manipulatively. And that's someone who's just more of a scammer in life. I'm not going to quit being more about me. I think it's just and fair. I hide my more authentic nature from the world. The truth is, I have a lot of inner conflict that I don't want to deal with. So I operate from my defensive, egoic nature, which to the extreme, I suppose, could be narcissism. For some people, and other people aren't willing to detach from their more hopeful, believing, loving nature. They just realize they need to accept the truth that some people are where they're at in life to whatever degree of kind of shadowy or immature, or that they've moved on in a high vibe relationship with someone else, and accept the truth of it, work through the emotional complexity of it, not willing to indulge people. A shadowy relationship can be where it is more transactional, but whoever thinks that they have more status, image, power, or influence in the relationship somehow, they think then they should be deferred to and it should be a little bit more about them. And that's not a high vibrational relationship, because love is supposed to be just and fair. You're supposed to treat other people the way you like to be treated. You're supposed to be being authentic. You're supposed to have learned to love yourself, to be more independent of your more egoic, defensive, shadowy ways of being. And high vibe people are working with the people in their life who are like that, and as they continue to move forward in their life and meet people, they're listening to their intuition about those people and kind of being illuminated to the truth. There can be people that we liked and we loved, but we really didn't miss an opportunity in love with them. Seeing through the illusion of that, which we could have had when we started this journey. I can't miss an opportunity of working together with someone in love and from love if they never operated from that foundation to begin with. And that's what the divine wants you to see the truth of. And that your dreams are in the process of being realized, and then the nines can talk about closing out a cycle so that you can have these new beginnings. And when we take that cup of love, we're no longer being more emotionally manipulated by people who are more shadowy nature and other people who are more shadowy nature. And that's when we have been illuminated to the truth, no longer manipulated by people who showed they weren't just and fair and authentic and loving and mature and stable or grounded or authentic to begin with. And that's when we go on this new journey. And as we go on that journey and become more independent of them, we get more inspired again by our dreams. And part of this whole experience could have been to make us really think about what our dreams were and our dreams weren't, because we came in contact with these people to help us get clear about our truth. That wasn't our truth. And so now we're going on this journey, meeting other people, and now we've learned to listen to our intuition because we maybe didn't do that in the past, and we're going on this new adventure. What's coming up for people who harness some high vibe Virgo energy that they might not see coming? Okay. The Ten of Swords, the Ten of Pentacles, and the King of Wands. So again, the tens can talk about completing a cycle. When you do the work, you detached from people who are more in their more worldly nature of self and the world. You detached from those people because you saw their truth was different than your truth. It was more about the things of the world or themselves. And I was like, that's not my truth. So you saw and were able to complete a cycle of detaching from people like that. And now, because of having gone through this process, you are much more stable and abundant and grounded and mature than you were before. And now, in the Emperor, you've learned all these lessons in life, and you are ready. You're making good decisions in your own life and standing up for yourself and your foundation. And why did this all happen? Because of the shadow side, which is like the devil. You know, we all have the free will to align with our more shadowy nature. And there's people in our life that we can love, that we can get along with, but they more appeal to our more worldly, egoic, codependent, fearful, insecure, lustful, greedy, self-indulgent nature. Can we stay in a relationship with them and things in a lot of ways by worldly standards look very victorious and successful? Yeah. But it won't be working together cooperatively with someone from love. Then in order to have that, we have to get out of aligning with our more worldly egoic nature and work with people who are also more aligned with their more worldly egoic nature. Because you are willing, the devil can be facing your fears. You weren't going to let the devil keep manipulating you and making you sad and looking to these things of the world or other people to be the answer to your problems. You saw that just keeps backstabbing and betraying your foundation. And the people who you get in relationships with really didn't want you to grow to your full potential. So I need to stop aligning with my more shadowy nature. When I stop aligning with my more shadowy nature, I don't want to live my life like that or be in relationships with people who live their life like that or think that way or act that way or treat other people that way. And then I detach from the more shadowy people in the world. And I was inspired, the Emperor is also Aries energy. I was inspired to put in this work and effort to learn these lessons, to grow up and mature myself. And the Emperor talks about learning all 4 lessons of the kings of the deck, and to be authentically a high vibe emperor in your own life, male or female, you're presenting yourself as a good leader in the world, inspiring, motivating, authentic, loving, because emotionally you're an empress energy, which is you emotionally have learned the 4 suits of the queens, you know? Oh my gosh, I love them and I drove my life off into the ditch. Oh my gosh, in my lust. That's the most important thing. And that drove your life off into the ditch. And then maybe your defensive nature, or your worldly nature, or your lust, or your greed. And you learn the lessons you're meant to learn. And you know that everything you go pursue isn't going to work out the way you want. But you learn the lessons. I am not going to let the fact that something that I had wanted to be victorious and successful in the death card didn't work out the way I wanted. And I'm going to maintain balance within myself, and I'm going to listen to my intuition. And if something has ended, I'm going to deal with the truth of it. And in the Ace of Swords of truth, I'm going to offer truth and love to my own inner conflict, to be inspired, to get out of my ego and my conflict about it. Everybody has the free will to live their life the way they want. Sometimes we're not on the same page at the same time. And I am going to pick myself back up. And then we have the Knight of Cups. And the opposite sign of Virgo is Pisces. And the Knight of Cups I view as Pisces. And it's our Pisces emotional nature. Scorpio's kind of the emotional water sign when we're invested in something. Pisces is the emotional water sign energy we tap into to transition out of things that were not stable, grounded. We weren't operating from the same philosophy of life in the Tower card. And we see the truth and we heal. And then the Knight of Wands, we get inspired to believe in ourselves and believe in our dreams. And we go on this journey. And in our Virgo energy that's in the Magician card, we take this time within ourselves to, again, love and believe in ourselves. Believe the Nine of Cups is also Pisces energy. To believe in our dreams. And part of this, with the Two of Wands and the Two of Swords, which can talk about our dualistic nature and balance, in our more worldly Virgo energy, we could have been a little more caught up in these things of the world that we wanted, and then getting more balanced, or we were kind of indulging poor behavior in others in our Pisces nature. And it's kind of learning these lessons and getting more balanced in our Virgo and Pisces nature to kind of know when going too far in either direction can kind of tip us out of balance. And it's about maintaining this balance. Do I want some of these things in the world? Yes. But I also truth, love, justice, fairness, and there has to be a balance. And some things probably weren't balanced. And your intuition told you that if you kept moving forward in it, there'd probably be a lot of things you would like about it. But it was never in the Tower and the Four of Swords, which is also Libra energy. It wasn't going to be just and fair, and you would have been kind of indulging your more immature nature of kind of like lust and greed or something like that. And you probably always have this inner conflict that's, it's not a more just and fair relationship. And one person does think it should kind of be more about them. And that wasn't what you wanted to manifest. That wasn't your truth. Are you sad? Yes. But if that's their truth, that's their truth. And you're willing to deal with the truth of the foundation that they operate from. My dreams can't come into reality if we have different truths. So I need to offer myself that cup of love to become independent of these people. And not let people who are in a little more shadowy energy manipulate me, because it just keeps me in shadowy energy. And you completed a cycle. And you are looking very stable and abundant and attractive, probably in fire sign energy in some way, energetically. And the devil can mean that other people are attracted to you. But some people know that in order to be in a relationship with you, they can't be in shadowy energy. They would have to work being inspired by truth and love, or you're going to move away from them and keep your distance from them. And that's why some people could be watching you, wishing they could be in a relationship with you, but they haven't done this work within themselves. And some of them might just decide, and that's the whole thing. Who do people want to be in a relationship with? If they were motivated to put in the work and effort to get through their fear, their insecurity, their pride, their ego, their more self-indulgent nature, they would. And some of them are like, that takes too much work and effort. This is good enough. Well, what's coming up? High vibe people are going to be very stable and abundant and good leaders in the world and in relationships with other people who are good leaders in the world. And they're going to have these things of the world that people can want and kind of be jealous of. What's gonna happen for the people that are in more shadowy energy that they don't see coming? The star in reverse. Why? Because of the lovers. The lovers is Gemini energy. So some people chose to give up their dreams of looking at life from a higher perspective, so they make their life more about themselves and these things of the world. And they could have given up their dreams and the people they would really like to have been in a relationship with, because they made the free will choice. That would require me to be more balanced. It would require me to be more just and fair. It would require me to connect in with the high priestess emotionally, talks about Cancer and Pisces energy. Cancer's emotional water sign energy up here, like the Four of Cups, about self-love and love of others. And they'd have to be willing to learn lessons in life. And they'd have to detach from an old way of living life that they used to think was just and fair, which could have been keeping their emotional nature hidden beneath the surface, and thinking it was just and fair to align with their more egoic, competitive, immature nature. And they'd have to deal with their own inner conflict they have about growing up, about maturing themselves, doing love. And some of them, sex is love. That's shadowy Scorpio. Life's just about death, sex, and taxes, and it's immature fire sign energy. Who am I going to have sex with? Do I need to do this work? Do I need to heal, grow, mature myself? No, this is good. I'll just do this. I just think when we go down a path of not wanting to deal with the truth, shadowy energy, pride comes before the fall, that we think we're the boss. The Tower card, and the Death card, and the Justice card, and the High Priestess, and the World card are all major arcana. There's rules to this game of life. And we in our ego can try to stay in denial of the truth that there's rules to this game of life. I kind of think the rules were, you can live your life any way you want. You have free will. You're going to learn lessons whatever way you choose. And there will be consequences, because if you choose this versus that, that might not work out so well. If you act bossy or controlling or immature, right? There's going to be consequences. That because they weren't willing to take more inspired action, they think that their dreams are going to come into reality. And the Two of Wands, it's like taking this action to try to get the Three of Wands to bring this dream into reality. But it's not going to come in the way they think. Could they have a lot of image or status and all those things in the world, yeah. But it might be with other people who, in their Gemini energy, also love more of these things of the world. And that's why they're in a relationship with them. That can be as they move forward, kind of in their pride and ego. Shadowy Pisces can be people who are creating an illusion. There'll be other people who are willing to get in a relationship with them, but those people are maybe turning their back and trying to stop them from seeing that they're very unstable and they're not very balanced and they're maybe not very just and fair. But they're willing to indulge them so long as it works for them. And then the whole thing is, if you're in a relationship more out of your fear, your insecurity, your pride, your ego, your lust, your greed, what if someone else comes along? That can be the competition. Someone else comes along who's got more status, more image, more money, or, well, they're more fearful or more codependent and they would require less of me. I'm going to go get in a relationship with them. You know, if people are kind of shadowy, they can all be kind of prideful and egotistical and kind of full of themselves. Well, I don't have to change. I don't have to grow up or mature myself. You need to change. You need to grow up and mature yourself. High vibe people realize they need to grow up and mature themselves, and they're willing to work on their issues as their issues kind of present themselves, and they kind of see where they're being kind of immature and bossy and controlling. But some of the more shadowy people want to keep staying in denial of it. And so some of the people right now that they could think that they're going to get justice with, those people could only be in a relationship with them because of their inner conflict or their ego or their image. And then when they have another opportunity to do something else, those people will let go of them because it really, if you want to build a solid foundation, it has to be built on truth and love. If you're building it on something else, you're building a foundation on shifting sand. And they might be in a relationship with people where it kind of can seem like it looks victorious and successful, but this is saying it's not balanced and it's not just and fair. And maybe both of them aren't very balanced and just and fair. And they could have had their dreams come into reality, but because of their love of self or these things of the world or their defensive nature or their egoic nature or being more about themselves, they're going to have to settle for the illusion. And then the Tower card can talk about the fact that other people can kind of see the truth. You can kind of see the truth of who's more in a relationship for these different reasons and who are people who really seem to have what other people wish they had, and who doesn't. And for some of those people, then that can really get them in their ego because they thought this was the way to go get what they wanted. And it kind of reveals the truth of who really invested in truth and love and authenticity and who didn't. And kind of reveals who is maybe more motivated and inspired by these other things. And I think they'll just have other people, the high vibe people in their life who are currently in their life, who've been trying to work with them, to work through their issues, being loving and encouraging friends, family, romantic interests. Some of those people are going to see the truth. My dream can't come into reality with you, or you just view life completely different. And I love you, but yeah, you do you, and we're going to do us. And I'm not going to maybe be up in my head about it anymore. And eventually the people who might stay in a relationship with them could be people who don't look at life from a higher perspective either. That's like high vibe Aquarius energy, who are kind of more about being in a relationship to be in a relationship, be in a relationship for the ego or the image or how they benefit. But it's not love, it's love of how it benefits them in some way. So there you go, Virgo. I wish you peace, love, and joy, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.